Today we have Dilan Jaunky, CEO and founder of SEVO Bioscience. He's going to tell us about his company, and we're very much looking forward to this. It's a company that obviously here in Atlantic, Canada, farmed fish is big business, and they have a new solution that I think people will be really interested in. So Dilan, take it away.
The aquaculture industry is a major food supply for everybody on Earth. It feeds billions of people every year. The problem is every single year, it also faces $6 billion in losses in production due to diseases. My name is Dilan Jaunky, and I'm the CEO and founder of SEVO Bioscience, where we're creating the world's first oral vaccine platform for farmed fish, therefore bringing the vaccines at sea. If you didn't know, this is what vaccination currently looks like in the industry. This fish is about 80 grams. It is handled, injected in the abdomen with a vaccine to immunize against potential pathogens that it will face later on. Now, this is one part of the solution. It is not necessarily the most effective because fish eventually succumb to the exact same disease we are trying to prevent through this method of vaccination. What this means is, when you look at it a little bit closer, the freshwater stage is where these fish are handled and maintained. So at 80 grams, they are vaccinated, they're kept in the freshwater, which is the hatchery stage as well. By the time they reach about 300 grams, they are transferred to the seawater phase, which is also known as the grow-out phase. This is where they grow all the way to their harvest weight and are fully susceptible to any pathogens and outbreaks at sea. This means we need to find a solution that boosts their immunity while they're at sea, because their immunity actually declines through time. Same thing as humans. This is where the farmer and the salmon are the most exposed and the most vulnerable to any of these outbreaks. Currently, there are no boosters available. Thankfully, SEVO has a solution. Our bioengineered microalgae called Kyvax produces copious amounts of protein, immunizing proteins such as antigens, within the same cell. This cell then carries this into a photobioreactor where it's grown to scale. The biomass is collected, formulated into a feed that is then delivered to the salmon, and its natural digestion actually releases the antigen payload, therefore immunizing the fish. This can be done throughout its entire life cycle. At any point in time, you can administer a dose to boost the immune system of the fish. The oral vaccine market is massive. It's about 15.2 billion doses for a TAM, which is worth $4.6 billion. This is across 6 viral diseases just for salmon, no other fish included. Right now, SEVO is building a vaccine, so Kyvax, for ISA, which is infectious salmon anemia, which affects Canadian production. This is expected to be about a total of 62 million doses, worth about $18.6 million. As we progress, we expand this exact same Kyvax ISA to 3 other regions, key regions like Norway, Chile, and Scotland, for the exact same ISA vaccine, reaching about 2.4 billion doses, worth about $725 million. This is what a net pen looks like, and each of these net pens contains about 200,000 fish, worth about $5.8 million in assets swimming around. This is what we're protecting. The key players in the market are numerous, which means that the market is extremely alive and well. Here you can see I've categorized them as contenders, followers, and leaders. The most interesting part is that these leaders are very active in the acquisition space. When you look at Merck, they acquired Elanco's Fish Health Therapeutics arm. You look at Zoetis, acquired Pharmac not too long ago, and this has been going on for decades. Right now, there's some contenders in the space that are also working on the oral vaccine products, such as Transalgatech and Feedvax. We are as well contenders, but we eventually want to move into becoming the leaders that would be interested in acquiring us. SEVO Bioscience is purely licensing opportunity. We produce the solution and we license to our partners who have the capability of scaling production, producing the feed, and then distributing it to the aquaculture farmers. We do not produce the biomass and we do not produce the feed. We're purely the solution providers. If you looked at all 4 key regions with about 2.4 billion doses, worth about $744 million, if we took one strain for one disease and we supplied it to a partner at an 8% royalty rate, we would make about $60 million per year. That's for a single disease for a single species of fish. The beauty of this model is that we stay lean and scalable, which means each of our licenses are stackable per disease, per species, and per geography. So every single time we have a new strain in our pipeline, we can get an extra license across the board, achieving higher growth in the long term. So our funding path to commercial sales, I've broken it down in terms of rounds, which each round will accomplish very distinct steps. Right now, our pre-seed round will allow us to accomplish a formulation optimization and a controlled trial challenge. This would allow attract more interest from feed manufacturers and aquaculture farmers alike. And then we would move into commercial paid pilots, where we'd be raising our seed and seed plus for a lot of the regulatory and efficacy trials at certified facilities. And then we'd move into our Series A, would allow us to manufacture and sell the biomass or to expand our R&D capabilities. Right now, we've had some pretty strong traction. Recently, we've been able to sign an MOU with a partner in India that allows us to produce a vaccine for their shrimp production, therefore immunizing the shrimp at sea. This work is ongoing. We've also secured partnerships with key experts in the aquaculture space, particularly for ISA, working with them to develop our feed formulation as well as do the disease challenge. We're also in discussion with strong potential leads that will allow us to scale in the commercial direction that they're interested in, providing ISA directly to them as a solution. So who's behind SEVO Bioscience? It's a team of ex-CEOs, savvy scientists, and a panel of advisors that are experts in biotech and in fish health. Altogether, we're able to move SEVO Bioscience's IP through the process of developing the next generation oral vaccine. And so together, I invite you to join SEVO Bioscience and let's recode life and redefine possible together. Thank you.
Excellent. So I have a bunch of questions. As I understand it, this is the current process in terms of immunizing fish. Early stage, manual process, and injection into each individual fish. That doesn't seem particularly scalable, and it seems quite expensive when you consider the fact that, say, a full-grown salmon will yield $40 to $50 in revenue. At this particular stage, you still have a couple of years of growth and feeding and all the cost of operations. That obviously losing a certain amount of fish makes this incredibly expensive. Can you just talk about your different process and how you actually have solved this problem? And is it fair to say that you've solved this problem or that you're part of a solution for this problem?
So it's interesting because the injectable market, created the first method for us to help fish right at sea. And it's the current gold standard. So there's no other methods for us to vaccinate fish credibly without going through a mechanical process that has to handle them and deliver this payload. It helps a lot of fish. The only problem is that it's not scalable to when the fish gets beyond, a few kilos. Like you can't handle a fish at that size, and it's also out at sea, full growing, subject to its entire environment. So we're not able to vaccinate the fish when they're at sea because it's not cost effective and it's too much stress for the fish. You'd risk losing a lot of them. This is where an oral vaccine would complement the current industry standards, which is injectables, but eventually we have the opportunity to maybe phase them out entirely. So this could be a next generation technology that farmers can then rely on for the hatchery level vaccination as well as out at sea phase vaccination. So our initial plan is to show that through our pilot study that our oral vaccine is on par with these injectables and can be a complement to them so that we can inject them at the hatchery level and we can orally dose them when they're out at sea so that they are fully protected and we don't run the risk of losing our entire production due to one outbreak when the fish is actually worth the most. Like you said, $50 per fish is the price point you would get when you bring it to market. But if you lose it at that specific point, well, all that investment goes down the drain.
Sure. When you look at this slide, one of the areas that I'd like to better understand is in step one, the anchor process. Is this essentially how you build this at scale? Can you talk a little bit about this and how this is different from any other type oral vaccines that are currently available?
Yes. So we are a synthetic biology company. So we've spent almost 8 years developing the process to genetically modify microalgae. And on top of that, we've designed a protein called Anchor, which allows us to stack, essentially think of it as a shelving protein. It shelves all of these antigens within the same biomass, allowing the cell to hoard this high amount of protein that will eventually go into production. So essentially what we've done in simple terms is we've scaled at a cellular level, the protein production, so that we could scale at a biomanufacturing level. And both of those will synergize. This is not something that our competitors are doing. What they're doing is they're producing whatever protein they can at a cellular level extracting it, purifying it, and then reformulating it into a package that's more concentrated. That entire 3 steps added is the most expensive part of their method. We circumvent all that by allowing the cell to be the sole producer and a carrier of high payload of protein. So Anchor is a proprietary piece of tech that is now embedded within these microalgae strain, and it's scalable across diseases because we don't really care about what antigen we're producing, because our anchor allows us to do that. We just anchor these key proteins of interest within the cell at high concentrations.
So in this particular case, what we've talked about today is the salmon market, but there's opportunities as a platform across other species as well.
That's correct. So right now we're going to start with salmon as the kind of the entry point. There's diseases that plague trout. There's bacterial diseases, because what I'm talking about mainly in this presentation is viral, but there's bacterial diseases that eventually, once we could immunize them against these bacterial diseases, we could phase out antibiotics potentially entirely as well. So antibiotics would be the next kind of therapeutic that we eventually want to transition away from. The next step beyond that is fish. Finfish is one, then it goes to shrimp. So can we produce oral vaccines for shrimp so that they are immunized against other viral diseases? And then can we go to land-based animals? Can we use the same process to deliver oral vaccines for poultry, for cattle alike, and then just scale it accordingly? Because at the end of the day, the biggest value is not handling the animal at all. Not having to interact with them, just delivering the vaccine in the most seamless and natural way so that they can be immune throughout their entire life cycle. And then maybe one day we'll be able to use this for humans so that we can immunize humans using oral vaccines instead of injectables.
Interesting. Fascinating.